Today's video is sponsored by Into the AM. Things are made to last. From place to place, generation to generation, you keep the things that the people you care for can stay with you. Because when they're gone and their memories fade away, what the hell else keeps them alive? As we learn that Uma is a little bit of a thief, as we get a really nice flashback of her hanging out with Bunny. Now within this flashback, we learn that she likes to take and keep other people's things, dead or alive, as we see on the night of Ben's second death, she took his missing hanky. Now in this episode, we see that Mabel is flying solo, we get a very major reveal about Dickie, and Charles and Oliver are left to deal with Ferris Bueller, who doesn't take any days off, as we got a murder to solve. Welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot here with our weekly Only Murders in the Building discussions, and this time we're breaking down episode 7 titled CoBro. As the popular theory about Loretta and Dickie may be true, and the man thought to be the killer is about to be set free, we'll be discussing that and much more in today's spoiler breakdown. But first, let me know what you all thought about this episode. Did you enjoy the return of seeing characters like Uma and Theo? What did you think of the cameos in this episode? And is Dickie responsible for killing his brother? Let me know your thoughts, your theories, your deeper meanings, your Easter eggs, and everything you all thought about this episode in the comments below. We got an episode to break down, full spoilers ahead. As Uma nicely gives Charles tips on eating alone, we see Charles and her share a sandwich over what happened between him and the crew, as she tells him that he should make up with them before it's too late and they die, which Charles doesn't believe they'll be dying anytime soon. But I would like to mention, and I talked about in the last few episodes, the show keeps giving us this type of hint that maybe one or two of our main characters may have something bad happen to them. I don't want us to forget that Oliver still has a heart condition, and I'm very curious if that's going to come back into play before the season ends. Not to jump too far ahead, but will Oliver's heart condition be the thing that brings Mabel back into the fold? As Uma leaves and makes Charles pay for her breakfast, lunch, and dinner, he notices that Ben's hanky is in her purse that she took from him. Mabel moving date has arrived. We get the return of Theo, who last time we saw him was in episode 7 of season 2. After taking some advice from Mabel to start talking to his father again, he's helping her pack. Mabel just wants to get closer to the situation and talk to someone who knew Ben and what happened to him. Theo suggested she go to an auction that Dickie is holding to get rid of some of Ben's movie props from his film CoBro. Meanwhile, our B plot consists of showing Oliver auditioning a bunch of knockoff Charles, as Cliff comes up with the perfect replacement and is no other than Ferris Bueller himself, played by Matthew Broderick, who seems to be the perfect fit at first, but Oliver finds out that he's beyond committed to this role, as he also has a history with taking roles from Charles. Now, I'll be honest with you all, I'm a fan of Matthew Broderick, and I mean, come on, the cameo of Mel Brooks was great, but I wasn't the biggest fan of this B-plot because it almost felt like it was a filler of this episode. Now, before you get to typing in the comments, I'm not saying this was a filler episode. I just felt as though this plot slowed the momentum down. Now, I get the purpose of this plot. Charles and Oliver have to make up. We have the situation of them figuring out the hanky. All that stuff makes sense. I just feel as though that it wasn't as compelling as the A plot. Mabel, Theo, Dickie, CoBro, that stuff was just really interesting to me. And every time, and look, I love Oliver, love Charles. Again, the cameos are great. It just didn't fit as well for me in this particular episode. Now, again, I'll give it some props. I had some good laughs with Matthew getting on Charles's and Oliver's nerve and him doing all the different takes. But again, it just felt like the A plot was just so strong, and whenever we would cut back to the B plot, it just slowed the momentum down. But we'll tie this back into the overall arching story and themes a little bit later. But before moving on, let's hear a word for the sponsor of today's video, Into the AM. Today's video is sponsored by Into the AM. Into the AM is a clothing company with a variety of amazing products such as t-shirts, hoodies, jackets, shorts and underwear, headwear, and much more. Their t-shirts have unique designs, they're incredibly soft and extremely comfortable, and they're made to last. But the best part is, you can get 10% off by using my discount code MovieFiles when you're selecting your new gear, which you can find that code in the description below. So thank you Into the AM for sponsoring today's video. I love my personal gear and my t-shirts that I own from them. They're so cool. And if you all are looking for some awesome new gear, look no further by clicking the link in the description of this very video to find out more. And if you happen to see something you like from Into the AM, don't hesitate and do not forget to use my discount code. Back into the breakdown, we check in with Mabel and Theo, who Mabel learns that Ben came up with the idea of his biggest franchise, CoBro, when he was a kid, but we'll later find out that might not be the case. As Mabel talks to Dickie, and instead of finessing her way into talking to him about Ben, she jumps right into questioning who was Ben on the phone with on the night that he was on the play, which caused him to rush out of the party, which is a huge question I've had since episode 1, and I just have a feeling in my bones that whoever he was on the phone with could be the killer or have something to do with his death. Clearly, this upset Dickie as he walks away from Mabel. Now, he eventually apologizes to her because he's been stressing out. He's been frustrated, rightfully so. He just lost his brother. Then he goes into more details. He starts to talk about he's just mad about his whole experience with his brother, all the different cover-ups. He's been spending his whole entire life protecting his younger brother. And then he says that Ben always gets the credit. It's just the story of their lives. Now, he doesn't stop there. He goes on to give a very, and I mean huge, reveal about their childhood. Now, Dickie tells Mabel that when they were little, he was always the second behind Ben. His parents always looked at Ben as the miracle child because Dickie was adopted. Now, I've been saying for the last few weeks that I believe that Dickie and Loretta, there's some connection going on between the two, whether that she was the babysitter when they were kids, or maybe there was something romantic between Dickie and Loretta. And I've already addressed, I've seen you all's comments in the comment section talking about how you all feel that Dickie could be the son of Loretta. Now, I never really bought into that theory until now. Now, if it comes to be true that Dickie is the son of Loretta, it kind of makes sense. The whole secret journal that she has wasn't her stalking Ben's career this whole time. It was her looking at her son growing up, right? By the way, I don't think that's probably his real name that she gave him. But let's go back to the opening scene of this season. Now, it showed us who we all assume was Loretta's life, showing her commitment to wanting to be a star by any means necessary, even if that means giving up her son that she might have had at a very important part of her career. Now again, if true, it makes her telling Oliver on the boat a couple weeks ago that she did something terrible in her past and that has haunted her. That makes sense. She gave up her son to chase her dreams. That's something that would probably make someone upset over the years. And all those nice compliments to Dickie. Oh, he's such a nice boy. He helped me with this job that he got. He's the manager of her. It's all starting to kind of make sense in how she would hate Ben and calling him a pig because maybe she saw how he treated Dickie throughout the years of her documenting that with the journal. And as we'll discuss a little bit later, maybe she knew that the idea of CoBro was from her son, Dickie, and maybe that drawing was from Dickie and he drew that when he actually was a kid. The question is, does Dickie know that that is his mom? Now, I also want to point out, I really enjoyed the connection between Uma and her saying early in the episode how things or items of your loved ones that they leave behind. Tying that into what Dickie says in this scene here, a person is just a collection of 1,000 details, and when they're gone, those are the things you miss the most. And I'm not going to lie, when he said that, and just the whole theme of this episode of missing your loved ones, I got a little bit of emotional watching this episode because it's so true to me. I feel like the things that we can cherish and look after, whether it's photos, or a blanket or a sweater, we cherish those items. So while again, I wasn't the biggest fan of that B plot with Charles and Oliver and all that stuff going on, I really enjoyed this plot. To me, it was the saving grace of this episode. But getting back into Dickie and Mabel, he gives her a very important detail, which he mentions that Ben would always set his clock 20 minutes early, which will be very important to helping Mabel get Greg out of prison later on in this episode for a crime that he didn't commit. We see Mabel packing her final things, which by the way, it wasn't revealed where she moved to. Are we assuming that she found her own place? Maybe she did take up Cinda's offer and use that money to buy that new place. I'm very curious to know where she ended up moving, but we see that Mabel does put the pieces of the puzzle together about Greg. He wasn't there when Ben was pushed, so it makes sense that he's not the killer. As Topper arrives, did you all notice that he has all new gear and he has a title and logo for Mabel's new podcast, which he calls it the Bloody Mabel Podcast? Now, I've had my suspicions on him and I still think he's very high on my suspect list, but does it seem clear as day that he is more interested in launching his own thing and using Mabel to do so? As Theo shows them something interesting from what was believed to be the first drawing of Ben's idea of CoBro. Now this is a bit of a stretch, but they theorize that the signature that Ben left is actually an R, which they connect to Dickie, and Mabel remembers what Dickie told her about Ben taking his ideas. Now she's believing that Ben stole Dickie's idea for CoBro, and that's Dickie's motive for killing his younger brother. Now to take my little theory that I had a couple weeks ago with the number 3 and there's triplets, and there's this mystery twin brother out there, it might still be in play. What if that R is stand for something, and maybe that R is, we know that Dickie said that he was adopted, maybe Loretta had 2 boys, or maybe it was a girl and one of those twins are trying to save their younger older brother. I don't know. I'm still thinking that there's 3 people involved, but it is time for Mabel to record for the first time without the guys as we end the episode with Oliver firing Matthew and rehiring Charles as they apologize to each other and they're friends again, which is great, but they have to figure out how will they bring Mabel back into the crew. Oliver finally shows Charles the secret Loretta journal. He believes that this doesn't make her a killer, which Charles might be right, as they think that this could be used as a peace offering for Mabel. But it is too late as Mabel has officially moved out of her aunt's apartment, which, by the way, are we going to ever meet who her aunt was? But Oliver and Charles and everyone listens to the first new episode with Mabel flying solo for the new Only Murders in the Building season, hashtag Bloody Mabel, as it is time to reopen Ben's case. I also want to point out that Uma did say that earlier that she sold that hanky for $7,000, as we learned that it was Dickie that bought that hanky and he's crying over it. Now the question is, are those tears for grieving or because he killed his younger brother or he knows who did it? Or is it a combination of all those things? Now let's take a look at our updated suspect list after this episode. Right now, I'm just going to narrow it down to 2 people, that being Loretta and her potential son, Dickie. So again, the working theory is she gave him up to pursue her dreams, but always kept tabs on him throughout the years with that secret journal. But why did she kill Ben? Did she discover that CoBro was Dickie's idea and she confronted Ben about this and she threatened to share this information to the public? But then Ben threatened her by ending her career and he's gonna threaten to fire Dickie, so she retaliated by killing him? Or maybe she always knew about CoBro because that drawing was from Dickie when he was a kid and she knew that that was something important to him. And all these years later, for missing up on time on raising her son, she thinks by killing Ben, she's doing right by her son for him pursuing his dreams and making his dreams come true. But that still leaves the question, where does that leave Dickie? Is he aware of this whole Loretta maybe being his mom? Or, putting that mom theory aside, do you all really buy into the whole jealous brother finally having enough of Ben and him taking his ideas and never giving him credit that he deserved and he finally snapped? I don't think it's that easy. Then the final question I have for you all is, who was Ben on the phone with? Could it have been this mystery twin or other brother or sister out there? Could it be a mystery child that he had? Who was he on the phone with? Let me know your theories on that. But overall, well, I got some laughs from the B plot with Charles and Oliver and of course Matthew Broderick and the legend Mel Brooks and of course the hanky tie into it. I ultimately didn't really care too much for that plot, but thankfully the main plot had enough going on with Mabel leading the charge and the whole Dickie stuff with the Loretta maybe or maybe not being his mom. That was the most compelling element of this episode, and personally I really did enjoy the theme with Uma and cherishing the things of our loved ones that they leave behind when they're gone. So that to me was a really strong point, and it made up for that stuff that I really didn't care for with the B plot. But overall, a pretty solid episode, which leads into episode 8. What do you all think is going to happen next? Are we going to see Loretta getting arrested or Dickie getting arrested? Will Greg get out of prison? Let me know your thoughts, your theories, your predictions of what you all thought about this episode and what you all hope to see in next week's episode. You all are great. I appreciate all the support in these videos. If you're still here watching this video, put in the comments right now, hashtag Bloody Mabel. Thank you all again for supporting this video. Before we wrap things up, consider hitting the like button, sharing today's breakdown, leaving your thoughts in the comments below, and of course consider subscribing to the channel, helping me reach my next goal of 60,000 subscribers. You all are great. Hope you're staying safe. As you can see on the screen now, consider joining the community, checking out all my breakdowns for Only Murders in the Building, check out my most recent breakdown, and I'll catch you all on the next video.